Hey, Colleen, Patrick-Goudreau here. Thank you so much for purchasing the recipes and the video recording of our Middle Eastern cooking class. We had such a great time. If you ever have any questions, please go to support@joyfulvegan.com. Let me know what other classes you're interested in. Of course, I hope you can join me for one of the cooking classes live in real time. We have such a great time. You can go to joyfulvegan.com/classes to find out the classes that are coming up, and I hope to see you in the future. Good. So we're going to start with the falafel. And one of the things that I had reminded y'all of in the email was if you're making this in advance, well, if you're making this and if you were going to make this with me today, and who's cooking with me today? Is anybody in the kitchen with me? Raise your hand there. Nobody, not Cynthia. Good, Maxine is. And maybe Carol, it looks like you guys are good. Yeah. Cool. So the main thing with anything, and I say this all the time ad nauseum, is we should always be preparing what we're going to be having for dinner in advance. We should always know what we're having for dinner. I think by breakfast time, I think we should always know in advance, because then we can prep whatever we need to, make whatever grains we need to, chop whatever vegetables we need to. And it just makes it a lot easier when it comes time for our dinner. That's the oven, because I'm preheating the oven because we're going to do half our falafel I'm going to bake and half I'm going to pan fry, so that you can see both. So, with anything, plan in advance. And obviously, knowing that you're going to make falafel, you're going to need to soak your beans. If you're doing that, just making your own beans anyway at all times, you're going to want to soak them. So I wanted to show you here kind of the difference in size. We've got here is just, well, I'll start with the dry. So here's dried, here's dried, you can see how big these are. These are soaked chickpeas. So you can see they're actually, the color really changes a lot. So they're a lot more yellow, but you can see they doubled in size. And then here is cooked chickpeas all together. And so you can see they kind of return back to a bit of a beige color, whereas the soaked chickpeas are quite yellow. Isn't that cool? So you can really see the difference in the sizes. You can really see the difference in the color. Now, when you're making falafel, you're not cooking your chickpeas, and that's essential. If you cook your chickpeas and you do everything we're going to do, you're basically making hummus, like some kind of spread. So, obviously you've all had falafel, imagine, and you know that it has wonderful texture, but it's not mushy. That's what our spread is. That's if we're making a hummus. So you're starting with chickpeas. You can soak these for 12 hours. I would do them for as long as you can, 12 to 24 hours. If 24 hours later, you're like, oh, wait, I'm not going to be able to make the falafel. What do I do? You can just soak them longer. It's okay. But obviously over time, the water's going to go bad. They're just going to start to go rancid, and that's not good. So, but you do have some flexibility. Just keep them in water. The chickpeas that I have made already, they're sitting in a tub in water in the refrigerator. So that's how you want to store them once you make them. And same thing if you're soaking them. You just don't want them to be without water too much, because they're just going to dry out. If you are what you eat, I am a chickpea. I hear you, Danielle. You are a chickpea. It's true. I know you love chickpeas. I do too. It's kind of the cutest name for a bean as well, I think. So we're going to use a food processor. You can use a blender for this, but I just find that the food processor, I always talk about the difference between the food processor and the blender. The blender, because the blade is all the way at the bottom, can be difficult to do something like this when you have to keep scraping down at the bottom to get the goods and to get them to keep pureeing. So I just find a food processor works really well with this. Just to be specific, you can really see the amount. So I did a bit more than a cup when I first soaked these, but what we're really looking for is by the time we're putting these in the food processor, you want about 2 cups. So however much, you don't have to be exactly precise. Like I can do 2.5 cups. It's totally fine. I could even do all of this. A lot of it has to do with the ratio of your herbs to your soaked beans. So we go to the farmer's market every week. We get just bushels of parsley. So this is a pretty good amount. For those of you who know me well, you know that I will not be putting cilantro in my falafel, but you may do so. Let's see, how should I say this mildly? Disdain. I hate cilantro. I am a cilantro hater and I embrace it. Those of you who love it, I'm so sorry, and it's fine, whatever. There are always going to be those people in the world. But I'm doing an entire batch of parsley. You can do half parsley and half cilantro if you want to do all cilantro. you can. But I really do think the parsley is going to add a really nice flavor. So I would do half and half if you're going to use cilantro. Who's using cilantro? Carol, are you guys using cilantro? Oh, Maxine, are you doing cilantro or parsley? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I should have made it an easy yes, multiple choice question. Are you doing all parsley? I can't see. Poor Maxine. Now she's frozen. Sorry, Maxine. All right, you come back. You come back. Yeah, Dora, people talk about how there's like a genetic thing that people who don't like cilantro, there's something, I always forget what it is. It's some enzyme that we don't digest well or some, I don't even think it's digestion. I think it's just really, it's the taste and it's the odor. Like it's so horrific. Yeah, I mean, it's cilantro, coriander, right? Same thing. Yep, for sure. Poor Maxine, she's frozen. I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't cause that, Maxine. Yeah, so cilantro, I mean, so many different countries claim falafel as their own. So there are some countries that would use cilantro, coriander, and some that are just going to use all parsley. So it's really a matter of which kind of country you're inspired by. There's like, I mean, from, obviously there's everyone says it's from their culture. It's most likely that falafel is from Egypt, and no one really knows kind of the exact origins. It's kind of a mystery. But when we think of falafel, it usually is a street food, and it's a wonderful snack. It's a wonderful meal. This is going to make a really good amount. So this is going to make. I mean, when I've been making this, I've been making it all week. It makes about, how many did I get? Like about 8 patties, which is a lot. And we usually put 2 patties per pita. And so I've been having 2 pitas, and I'm like, when I go out to a restaurant or do takeout, I don't eat more than 1 falafel, like 1 pita with the 2 balls or 2 patties of falafel. So it's quite filling. So you're going to get a lot of falafel with this. So let's get this going. You can start with just the chickpeas and just kind of get that going if you want. But you don't really have to. And the thing is, it's really nice about this, you're not adding any liquid. You're just going to get you want a texture so the patties are going to hold together, but you don't want them to be super wet and you don't want them to be super dry because they're not going to hold together. Ideally, you would make these in advance and you would put this in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes, but overnight is going to give you the best flavor. I'm just going to put in that much. And then I'll put in the other ingredients. You don't have to do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you kind of one at a time. But let's get our onions in. This was a yellow onion. It was very roughly chopped. You don't have to make it perfect dices. So get the onion in there. And you can just keep pulsing to get the texture you want. Some people prefer to do that instead of like pureeing it. So you can just do like a pulse and get what you want. You might have to scrape down the sides a bit. And of course, the most, I don't know, this is more than 4 cloves, obviously. It really depends on the size of your garlic, but I like it really garlicky. So I'm putting, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about 6 cloves, but I like it really garlicky. So that's what I'm doing. Now, you don't have to do this. This is kind of, it's my own thing. I just like things spicy. This is a jalapeno pepper. And I took the seeds out, and I'm going to throw this in as well. If you wanted it a little spicy and you don't have a pepper and you have chili powder, just do something like that. You know me, I'm always showing you my cilantro, my chipotle chili pepper. So you can use that as well. It just adds a little bit of a spice. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And our cumin. You can also add coriander to this. I found that it made it a little sweet. I don't love the coriander in this. Now, obviously, the irony is that I like coriander. Coriander is the seed of the cilantro plant. Cilantro is the leaf, even though different countries call the leaf coriander as well. In the United States, we say cilantro for the leaf and coriander for the seed. But I do like the seed. I do like the spice. I just don't like the leaf. Yes, and traditionally vegan for sure. This conversation's going over here about bananas. Julie, don't say anything about bananas, man. I don't know. Just careful. So this is getting wet because of the herbs that are in here. I'm gonna let that go for just 20 seconds. Is it really officially the national food of Israel? Yeah, it's so funny. Like I said, so many different cultures claim it. I'm going to put some salt in. It's definitely going to need some salt. And we can do this once I put this in the bowl as well. You can taste it for salt and you can taste it for more cumin or whatever. But it's better to try to get everything in here first, especially if you're using something like the jalapeno. You're going to really want to get that mixed in here pretty well so you don't have all of a sudden a big bite of jalapeno. Let me take a taste. Now, the thing that is so characteristic of falafel, use a little more salt, is the gorgeous green color. And I'm going to show you this in a second. Tiny bit salt. We can add some more at the end. That's perfect. I love that. That's absolutely perfect. The thing is, it's going to have a bit of a gritty texture to it. So just know when you're tasting this at this stage, it might taste a little gritty to you and you're going to be like, that doesn't seem right. It's going to change when it's cooked. Now, when you're cooking it, you know, you're pretty much just kind of, well, you can deep fry it. I just can't bring myself to deep fry, but you're just mostly heating it up a bit and crisping out the outside, but it will change the texture. And let's put this in a bowl now and you can see how gorgeous this color is. So the more herbs you use, the greener this is going to be, the most gorgeous color it's going to be. And then, you know, the outside is usually a nice golden brown, but when you bite into it, you see that gorgeous green on the inside. And that is falafel. Now everything, you know, is so different right now because so many things are closed, but honestly, I mean, this is such an opportunity to make the foods of the restaurants that you would normally frequent. You can make the stuff at home. I mean, obviously we want to support the restaurants and there are so many wonderful people making fabulous food in restaurants, but you don't have to wait for restaurants to open back up again to enjoy this. So I'm adding a little bit of baking powder. The baking powder is here and I'm adding a little bit of flour. It just helps bind it. It's a little wet. If I just tried to make a patty out of this, you can see how kind of crumbly and wet it is. So adding the flour and adding the baking soda, the baking powder is going to help fluff it up a bit when it cooks. And the flour is obviously going to hold it together. You can use chickpea flour because then obviously that makes sense. I'm just using an all-purpose. So if you don't have chickpea flour, you can still absolutely use an all-purpose flour. Any questions while I'm going on here? We're going to start getting our pan ready. I've already preheated the oven to 425.
Colleen, in the recipe packet, you noted baking soda rather than baking powder.
Did I say baking soda? I put baking powder. I think you want baking powder, so let me change that. But yeah, okay. Baking powder. It's not going to be terrible if you use baking soda. So if you've already put it in, don't worry about it.
I think I can edit it real quick.
What's that?
I can edit it for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Let's just edit that. It should be baking powder. But don't forget, baking powder contains baking soda. So if you use baking soda, that's fine. Okay. So again, ideally, this would sit for a little bit and it would make it easier. We can kind of let this sit for a little bit and kind of move on to another recipe. It's not a bad idea. I think it's going to be easier to form the patties. But either way, what you want is you can just use a spoon. I like using a scoop because it just creates a uniform size, but it's really up to you. Let's see how well this does first. And I just want to taste it one more time because I have to. Now, again, if I were in a cooking class for real, I would not be using a fork that I just used, but you're not here. You can do whatever you want at home. My husband doesn't mind. Flavors are great. I'd probably put a little more salt in, maybe some pepper. So that's what's nice. You can just modify it a little bit here, but it's really, otherwise it's great. It's falafel. So pretty. And then let me just see how this is going to start holding together. I think it's going to be okay. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to let it sit for just a few minutes. I really want this to be what you will see when you're doing it. I think will be better if we just let this sit for just about 20 minutes. Let's move on to one of the other recipes and then we'll get this in the pan and in the oven. What's nice about baking it is that, because here's what we're going to do. Let me see. It might be just fine. when we bake it, it dries it out. And what I've done is I bake it and then I just do a little fry because then it's all pretty well together. I like kind of pressing it pretty well in the scoop, kind of get a good scoop. Can you see this? This is going to be the easiest, this one right here. So when you're deep frying it, you know, balls are ideal, but when you're pan frying this or baking it, it's better if they're patties. So what I do, I think, let's just move forward. Let's just move on. We'll keep moving forward because I think it's holding together just fine. So what I do is put the scoop and then just press it down. And then you've got all these nice uniform size patties. Now, obviously the size of the patties are going to differ depending on how big your scoop is. I've brushed this silpat with oil. I know that might seem weird because the whole point of the silpat is to not use oil and it's nonstick, but I found that it sticks a little bit. So putting just the tiniest bit of oil on the silpat, and then I'm just going to brush the top of the falafel. So believe me, you know, if you're not using any oil at all, that's your prerogative, but this is so much less oil than if you were getting falafel at a Middle Eastern restaurant at a falafel stand. It's deep fried. So you're getting all the flavor, all the crispiness, all the healthiness without all the oil. This is even using the tiniest bit of oil, you're still using a lot less. All right, let's keep moving on then. So basically create your scoop. Did you have a question, Danielle? Did I hear your little voice? No? Isn't that gorgeous? Super pretty. Green, gorgeous. Talk about eating by color. So this size scoop, as I mentioned, gets me about 8, maybe more. And I'm forgetting because sometimes I eat while I'm cooking and I might eat some of my ingredients and have less by the time I'm finished cooking. I don't know if that happens to any of you, but I always have less by the time things are finished cooking than when I started and then when I'm supposed to. Okay, so oh, okay, so that's 9. So I clearly have eaten throughout when I was making these myself. That's great. Actually, yeah, that makes more sense. 3, 6, 9, and this will probably give me a 10th. So that is a huge amount of falafel. And, you know, I'm so thrilled you guys are all joining me all these weeks for these classes because, I mean, this stuff is so, again, we all go out to restaurants, we all treat ourselves. That's the point, is that restaurants and eating out should be about treating ourselves. But holy moly, this stuff is so much less expensive than eating out, right? I mean, the cost of the chickpeas, and then we're talking some herbs and stuff that you have all the time, spices that you're just using again and again. I've got to watch this food processor. Oh, I'm going to put some of this in the pan, but like so much less expensive. So I did all of these on the sheet, which is fine. You can do these all on a plate if you want. So what I'm going to do is just kind of show you both. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in our pan. It is a nonstick pan, but still it does require some oil. And then I'll take a few of these patties and put them in here. And then I'll put these in the oven. And like I said, is it about 425? Is that what I have, Danielle?
Yeah, 425.
Okay. Nice hot oven because you want that heat to really just crisp up the tops and the bottoms. Now, because these are patties, we can flip them. So we're obviously going to do that in our pan, but you would do that in the oven as well. So we'll set the timer for about 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. I have it on convection 425, so it should be pretty fast. See what it's like, flip it over. But I did notice that when I didn't put the oil on, let's brush with a little oil now on the top. Just be gentle because you know it's a little tender. You see that? Just brushing it with a little bit of oil. I noticed that when I didn't have that, it just stuck, which wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it made it harder to flip, made it harder to pull out. And then I had all that crispiness on the silpat, and I really wanted it in my belly. So I did wind up pulling it off and still eating it, but that kind of ruined the presentation. All right.
We had a question from Cynthia. Do you always use olive oil?
Do I always use olive oil?
Yeah.
Meaning what, Cynthia? Meaning versus another oil, or do I use oil versus no oil? What? Tell me more. Tell me more.
Oh, just now, like for the falafel recipe, probably. from your pan frying?
Just now. Right. So do you mean, sorry, just want to make sure I understand your question. Elaborate for me. You can even come up and talk if you want to just unmute yourself. It might be easier if you want to just ask directly, Cynthia. So I want to make sure I understand your question. If your question is, would I always use olive oil for a falafel versus another kind of oil?
Can you hear me, Colleen?
Yeah.
I always use olive oil because I'm kind of afraid of the other oils for various reasons. So my question was, I know olive oil can be pretty pricey. I was wondering if you use other oils for different things, or do you use olive oil most of all?
That's a great question. I use olive oil most of all because of the flavor. And I talked about this in last week's class, in the Tuscany class. We do tend to get kind of a lower end olive oil for something like frying. And then we get a higher grade olive oil, which would be more expensive for where you're really going to taste it, where you really want to taste that fruity, grassy flavor, like making dressings. So if that's a concern, the price, just find one that's just kind of more like every day, and one that would be more for when you're really going to taste the flavor and really appreciate it. Yeah, cool. That's a great question. I don't have an aversion to other oils though. I don't use a lot of it, so I just don't have I don't have aversions to it. So when I'm baking, I tend to use more of canola oil. I do. Coconut oil are the two that I would probably use more in addition to the olive. But olive is the one that I use more.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Because olive, if you're baking with olive, you know, it's going to change the flavor of a chocolate cake, for instance. You are going to get more of that fruity flavor, and I don't necessarily want that. But I do use canola for baking because it tends to be pretty mild tasting, but still does the job. Or I'll melt butter for baking, like Miyoko's butter, or I'll use coconut oil. But I don't use coconut oil a ton, just because it's just easier for me to just find canola and olive, and I just prefer it. And again, coconut's going to give you a lot of that flavor. So just to show you, I've got those in the pan. I'll bake 6 of them, and I've got 4 of them here in the pan, and I'll show you this in a sec. Let me get this in the oven. It's just on the center rack, and before I forget, let me just set the timer for 10 minutes. And we'll check it, flip it, and eat it. Oh, I think that's going to go for an hour and 10 minutes. Okay, now it's right. Okay, that'll be a very long bake. All right, so any other questions you have, ask me. I have to very quickly do our food processor because we have to make our Muhammara in it. So gather your questions. Actually, this is pretty clean. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad at all. Now for the Muhammara, also I do like using the food processor versus a blender, but you can use a blender. If you have like a bullet, you can use that. For the Muhammara, I mean, if you have things chopped really well, you could even just do it by hand, but you really want to get that roasted red pepper pretty well pureed. And you can also use something like an immersion blender that should work, but I think food processors are helpful to have. I use them a lot in the kitchen, and I think you will definitely get a lot of bang for your buck if you have a food processor. Just makes things easier. Okay, but what should we do next? Should we do the Muhammara next? Should we do that? Who here has not had Muhammara before? Okay, Carol hasn't. Who has not? Janice has not. So exciting. This is the first time you're having it, making it. Trusting me, it is so good. Right? It is ridiculously good. Like, it is so fabulous. I think it's going to be this is going to be a game changer for you in 2020. That's all I'm saying. No pressure. I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to say that and stand by it, is that this is going to be a game changer for you in 2020. You can use it as a sandwich spread. You can use it on a meze plate. So if you have, pita and crackers and fresh vegetables, raw vegetables. Do you make it at all, Danielle? Or do you mostly make hummus? You're mostly a hummus girl because you're a chickpea, because you're a chickpea girl, because you're a chickpea. Yeah. But you've made it before, right?
No, I've never made it. I've only eaten it out. But I was in the mecca of it, so it's.
You might not have been in that cooking class because I used to do this in the cooking class all the time.
Yeah, but I didn't personally make it.
Oh, true that. True
I was
that.
just witnessing the greatness. That's all.
So there is our falafel starting to get nice and crispy on the outside. Gorgeous. So again, you can see what we did. Like if you can let it go 12 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 24 hours, any length of time you're going to give it, it's going to be great. But it's not like you can't do it right away. I have just proven that. Okay, so we're going to do our Muhammara. We don't need the parsley. I have some extra parsley there. Cumin, salt, breadcrumbs, walnut, garlic, agave, and lemon juice. We've got our lemon over here. Just keeping an eye on my falafel here. It's looking good. It's looking good. Okay. Super easy. Also something that does taste better the next day because the flavors really meld, but it is something you can make right away. Just try to give yourself a little bit of advance time, especially if you're going to be serving this to friends or to yourself or anybody. I keep clarifying that because we're not seeing friends like we used to for now, temporarily. But do let this sit for a little bit if you can. It will just, the flavors will meld and it's more fabulous than ever. So again, also very, very affordable dish, although there was a time in the Middle East where this would have been considered a bit more of a luxury item because of the cost of the walnuts, because of the cost of the peppers. Now, you can certainly roast your own red peppers for this, but I'm using a jar of peppers. So this is a jar of roasted red peppers. And what's nice about this is that I'm not using this whole jar. So you are using, 2 or 3 of the peppers. Now, sometimes it depends on the size of the peppers when you buy a jar of roasted red peppers. You can also use other color. You can get yellow roasted red peppers as well. It doesn't have to be red. It'll add a different color to it. All right, I'm just gonna turn this down. Oh my God, these are so pretty. That green is ridiculous. I can't. Okay, so let's get going on this. It's definitely something you can make just if you're having a party and you're like, oh, I need a spread. I don't know what to make and I didn't soak my chickpeas and I don't have any cans of chickpeas. This is something you can make really quickly, really, really easily, and it's delicious. You can use raw or, sorry, I should put it down more. You can use raw or you can use toasted. I'm just going to use raw, but I do like toasted nuts for anything like this because it just brings out the flavor more of the walnuts. So just put them on a rack, just toast them, bake them for 3 minutes or something. You don't need it very long, and keep an eye on them. You can also pan toast them. You can just throw them in a pan. You don't even need any oil, and just get those flavors going. So I'm going to use raw. Any questions? What do we have? Your recipe notes say how to make breadcrumbs. Oh, did I say I would tell you how to make breadcrumbs and I didn't? I'm so sorry. I will tell you right now, but I'll also add it to the recipe sheet because it's going to splash. I can just tell. There's a nice big. So I'm probably going to use 2 of these because this is a pretty good sized pepper. So I don't need to use 3. There's probably some seeds in here still, which I don't mind. They're going to get pureed. I'm just curious. I mean, it's a whole roasted pepper, so there's probably some seeds. Yeah, a little bit, but it's not a big deal. So you just get, big deal. You don't have to seed this or anything like that. Just put them right in the food processor, and let me grab the other one. Sometimes they come apart when you're pulling them out. It's rare that you get the whole pepper intact like that. Smells so good. So I have 1 left. I'll be able to use this for something else. And I can really just put everything else in at this point. I can put our walnuts. I'm going to put our garlic. I'm going to put our garlic in now. Again, it's probably a little bit more than I say in the recipe because I like garlic. But I'm going to put that in now. And then I'm going to let this go just because I want the garlic to have a chance to really get pureed. I can add the cumin right now too. It's fine. Now I'm going to also make this spicy for me and my husband because I like it spicy. So I'm going to add some red pepper flakes, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Okay. be mindful again that you're gonna have a pretty good wet mixture here, but we're gonna add the breadcrumbs and that's gonna dry it out and make it just more solid. So right now it's pretty wet. You can see that? It's pretty wet because it's just the pepper. So you're not adding any other liquid, just some lemon juice, that's all we're adding. The breadcrumbs. So you can use breadcrumbs, you can use panko. You know, even if you use like Italian breadcrumbs, it's fine. It's just gonna add some, you know, herbs, because Italian breadcrumbs would typically have like oregano and thyme. It's fine. It's not gonna be a problem. But the breadcrumbs are here for the substance. So these are homemade breadcrumbs. Here's how you make breadcrumbs. You start with bread. Now you can start with stale bread. That's one of the best ways to make breadcrumbs, because it's going to be really easy to put all of the bread in a food processor, and you just pulse it until you get basically the texture size you want. I could have gone more, but the fresher the bread is, the harder it is to actually, you know, get all of that pretty well chopped up. So this is a perfect size. It's going to get chopped up more in our recipe, but the more stale the bread is, the easier it is going to be to break it up. So you want to do that first, because you want all of the surfaces of the bread to dry out. And so that's when you then put it in I did it just in my little toaster oven, my little convection oven. And I did it for, I'll put the exact recipe because I actually have to go look. Maybe it was like 350 for like 10 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. Maybe 5-10 minutes. And then I just kind of tossed it about and did it for another 5 or 10 minutes. I just kept a close eye on it. And this was yesterday. So it stayed, you can hear it. It stays really crispy still. And I've had this in the container overnight. So this would last for probably about a week, but I would use it within that time period, keep it in the fridge. So I'm just gonna add that to our muhammara, and I'll add some lemon juice. And I mean it, it might seem like a pain to have to make all of your own stuff, but honestly, my husband went to the store for me to pick up some things for the class the other day. And I asked him if there was any breadcrumbs that weren't in plastic, and there's not. Now, sometimes you'll find breadcrumbs in like those tins, you know, kind of, remember like they're kind of thin tins, and that I probably would have gotten, but most of those tend to be, I don't know, just a lot of preservatives in them. So, and they'll add oil sometimes, sometimes palm oil. So why not just make your own? It is so easy. This was a ciabatta. You can use any kind of bread. You can even use a gluten-free bread. So if you don't eat gluten, you can make this muhammara without the gluten. My timer's going off, so I'm going to turn this on and I'm just going to go check the oven, and I'll show you what it looks like so we can flip it together. Okay, just put this on. Fantastic. Oh, I've got to add our agave still as well. Hang on. It's burning my hands here. Actually, you can see that. Can you see that okay? You guys see that okay? So I don't know if you can tell, it's browning already. So I'm just going to flip it. And oh, that's so much better. Now, you can see how intact these are. These are quite intact. They're not mashing down. I don't know if you noticed beforehand, but it was pretty easy to just kind of press those down and make my patties because they were still pretty wet. Just this much time, 10 minutes in the oven, they're already, but you can see that one didn't have a lot of oil there, so it's sticking. So that's what I mean. Just, I'm gonna put that over on this side. It has a little bit more oil. What's nice about it is you've got a good start. And if you still want to put these in, obviously the middle ones are much better looking than the ones on the end. If you weren't here right now, I'd be scraping this and eating all of this. I'm gonna eat a little bit of that, but we can still put it in the pan and just get a little bit more crispy, right? But no doubt, reduces some calories, uses a little less oil. Great. If you want to do more, do more. All right, I'm gonna put this on for another 10 minutes so I don't forget. And let's see how our muhammara is doing. We're gonna add some of my, so agave. So this is, as you know, many of you know, when I get things in bulk, I store them in my whiskey bottles. I know you appreciate that, Julie. So this is an old whiskey bottle. This is agave that I would have gotten in bulk, some store, I can't remember where. But this is agave nectar. Put a little bit of agave in. You can use a little sugar if you don't have agave. It's just to add a little bit of sweetener. Traditionally, what would be used would be pomegranate molasses. But I do not have pomegranate molasses. I don't know if you do. If you do, fantastic. Use it. Adding a little salt. I already added my cumin. There's no real order. You can, I mean, there's really no order. I should have put this in earlier. And I could have put my red pepper flakes in earlier as well. So I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes as well. I really like the spice, and it's a really nice balance between the spicy red pepper flakes and the sweetness from the agave and from the peppers. So, and then someone who follows me on Instagram, she's Syrian. This is a Syrian dish. She really encouraged me to get Aleppo peppers, which I have not gotten before. Obviously, Aleppo is from Syria. And so that is a suggestion straight from a Syrian vegan. Put that on. And really, at this point, you're really just tasting for salt. You're tasting for spice. You're checking the texture. If you want to put some more breadcrumbs in, you can. You shouldn't have to do too much tweaking at this point. You don't want to do too much tweaking. You don't want to add garlic at this point. It's going to be hard for that garlic to get minced up in this. So you really don't want to tweak much more of the big stuff. You can throw some breadcrumbs in if you want to make it a little drier. But really at this point, you're pretty much tweaking for salt. So let me just give that a try and I'll show you what it looks like. I haven't had this in so long. So much fun to make this. I haven't made this in so long. It's kind of perfect. Oh my gosh. I used to make this all the time in the classes. I like the texture that it's at right now. I might just give it one more little pulse. But you can see the red specks from the red pepper flakes. Oh, it's just the perfect amount of spice. You can see the, oh, there, it's hitting the back of my throat. I can taste the garlic. I'm gonna give it one more pulse. It's fine. Woo! I didn't put that much in. I think it just got me. That is really good. That is so good. Oh my gosh. So good on just like little crackers or little crostini, sandwich spread. This will hold in the fridge for about a week, but it's not gonna last that long. It's not. You're not gonna have it in the fridge that long. You're gonna eat that in a couple days. Oh my God, I want you to taste it. Carol or Maxine, are you making the muhammara? How is it? It's good. Carol says thumbs up. Maxine, is it good? Okay, Maxine, got to get that audio on. I want to hear you. It's okay? Can I hear you? Do you want to share?
Unmute.
Good.
Well, I'm raising my finger. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay. I gave you a thumbs up because it looks good. I have been so busy getting ready for the Tabouli, so I have not made your, how do you say it?
Muhammara.
Muhammara? Yeah, so I will make that later.
Okay, good.
I have all the ingredients.
Good.
But
Yeah,
so
I know that when you guys cook on the classes, you don't always do exactly all the same dishes all the time. So that's totally fine. So I want to hear what you think about it when you're done making it later on.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. And Carol, did you made it though just now? Looks like you've got some. Oh, look at that. Is that your muhammara? Awesome. It's quite a bit in the solid. Is it solid? You picked it up with your hand. Is it just pretty well? Okay, there it is. I got it. Awesome. That looks great. Tastes good? Good. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, I'm so excited because David and I are going to have the best lunch. Putting that aside. And now I'm going to show you the falafel. So this has been sitting, I can hold this, it's not that hot. But so obviously, you know, when you get a falafel from a restaurant, it's fried, it's the ball. You would normally kind of see mostly that. And then when it comes time, obviously, to bite into it, you would see all of that. But you can see the texture is really held together quite well. And this is going to be fantastic in a pita. You can put it in a lavash. You can just use it in some kind of flatbread, or you can just make it a main dish. It's so good. It's so good. Oh my God. Keeps getting better. And you just keep getting better as you keep making it, because you can keep tweaking it to your liking. So I don't know if some of you saw on Instagram, but I made pita bread. Yeah, I was pretty psyched about that. I had a pretty massive fail the first time. I didn't really, well, I puffed up. But what you really want to do when you're making pita bread from scratch is, well, obviously, once it's puffed up in the oven and you take it out of the oven, you want to flatten it right away and get all that steam out, and then cut it open so that the pocket forms. And so I didn't do that. And so it was very puffy. And so then it dried, obviously cooled, and it stayed puffy. And it was just a big, big mess. So David was very kind, because eating our falafel inside that was very difficult. It was just really crunchy. The second time I did it, the first two didn't do well, but the second two did. And I had pita pockets, and it was amazing. And it's super, super easy. So I know people have been asking for some more bread classes. We've got one bread class coming up with, we're doing a quick soda bread, and we're doing the drop biscuits, because those two are very quick to make. And we're going to be doing bagels. So again, making your own bagels from scratch, it's pretty phenomenal. All right, any questions you have, if you want to come up and ask, please do. I'm just going to check what's in the oven, and we're going to move on to the tabouli. That's the last thing. But if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Yeah, this looks great. This is done. So again, pretty similar to what was in our on the stove top. And there you go. There's our gorgeous falafel. So easy. Julie, can you do this? Yes, you can. If you have a food processor, you soak some chickpeas and you throw some herbs in there with some spices, you get falafel. Like, that's it. It's so easy. This kind of stuff really demystifies what we get in restaurants, doesn't it, a bit? Just really demystifies, which is part of the magic of going out. That's totally fine. I'm not like against restaurants, but being able to make this stuff at home, I think it's really empowering, and I think it's really exciting. And I know I love it, and I think you guys do too. You wouldn't be here. So I'm glad we're on the same page. Okay, I'm gonna shut my oven off. I did. Okay, that's kind of cool. So we're gonna move on to the tabouli, which, you know, typically, traditionally, we would use cracked wheat, bulgur wheat. I'm not a huge fan of bulgur wheat. I would say probably the only time I've ever really used bulgur wheat is to make tabouli. But I just really prefer quinoa for this, mostly because of the flavor. I think the flavor is just better, definitely because of the nutrients. And I'm not gluten-free, but many people are. It's a perfect way to make a tabouli that's gluten-free, because obviously bulgur wheat has wheat, so it's not. I could see that, Danielle. I could see that. Because, I mean, obviously, it's going to be pretty plain as it is, just like oatmeal would be, or polenta or anything like that. And whatever you add to it is going to spice it up. So, yeah, I could see that. But I just don't know. I don't really buy bulgur a lot. So quick. It's really fast because you barely are even cooking it. You're mostly just, you know, kind of like oatmeal, just pouring hot water on it, and it cooks up because it's just really finely chopped wheat. The quinoa is also very quick to make, and you know that already. But I will put a plug in for quinoa in the pressure cooker. And I think, because I've been thinking about what to do for a pressure cooker class, because I know a lot of people are asking for that. Quinoa would be one of those things I would make, because it literally, so when you look at a pressure cooker booklet and you look at the time and the ratio of water to grain or beans or whatever for quinoa specifically, it says just put it on for 1 minute. I do 2 minutes because I'm just radical like that. So we're talking 1 to 2 minutes. Now with a pressure cooker, you still have to, it has to go up to pressure, and it has to release pressure. So even though when I talk about, you know, making chickpeas or pinto beans in 30 minutes, chickpeas take a little longer. And these are unsoaked pinto beans or unsoaked beans, unsoaked anything. putting the pinto beans in, 30 minutes is what you set it for, but it still takes about 45 minutes because it has to come up to pressure and then it takes some time to go down to pressure. Still 45 minutes without having to soak the beans and getting the best tasting beans ever is pretty awesome. With quinoa, my alarm is going off. With quinoa, so yes, technically I'm putting in for 1 minute or 2 minutes and it takes a little longer because it has to come up to pressure, but it takes no time to come up to pressure because it's such a small amount in the pressure cooker, and then it takes very little time to come down. So I would say all in all, it takes about 10, 12, 15 minutes to make the quinoa in the pressure cooker. I would say 12 minutes. But more than just the time that you save, I have never made quinoa so perfectly than when I make it in the pressure cooker. And I say that because quinoa, if you just use the wrong ratio of water to the grain, can be very wet, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I don't mind wet quinoa. There's times that I like wet quinoa because I like it when it's like more of a breakfast food and I want it to be a little creamier, like more of a, like a porridge. So I don't mind it when it's that way, but for something like this, where you want it for a salad, you want it to be fluffy. You don't want it to be super, super mushy and wet. So you can see, I mean, you can see how fluffy this quinoa is. And that was from the pressure cooker. The ratio of water to grain in the pressure cooker, which isn't that much different than doing it on the stovetop, is 1 cup of grain to 1¼ cup of liquid. Could be broth, stock, water, what have you. I do just water for this because I want the flavor. I wanted my flavor because, you know, when I make stock, and I've been making a lot of homemade stock as well, the stock is a different flavor every time because it really depends on what kind of vegetable scraps you have. So I didn't want to have an uncertainty. I wanted to know what my quinoa was gonna taste like, and basically I wanted it to taste pretty neutral because of the spices I'm adding to it. So here's just the quinoa when it's dry, and here's the quinoa when it's cooked. I have some of you can see some of the rainbow quinoa in there as well. But it makes so much, and again, just protein packed, fiber packed, absolutely delicious, and I love it. And it is a seed. Quinoa is a seed. Yep. So let me see if I can see some of y'all questions. Oh, look at lots of conversation about quinoa. And what is couscous? Right. So couscous is really technically a pasta. It's semolina flour. I'm sure someone's already answered that already for you. So couscous is semolina. It is a wheat. It's basically a pasta. It's not a grain. I mean, it's a grain because it's made from a grain, but it's a pasta. So that's couscous. And couscous, you can use couscous for a salad like this as well. I mean, you can use any small grain for a salad like this. You use any grain for a salad like this. But traditionally, tabouli would be made with the bulgur wheat. Couscous would also work, but I think quinoa is even much better flavor-wise and also nutrient-wise. Can't get it right on the stove, perfect in the pressure cooker. I know, Geraldine, that's the thing. And the thing about the stove is because it cooks so quickly on the stove, you have to really watch it because it can burn. I will say a tip for making it on the stove if you don't have a pressure cooker and you're not ready to go there yet. I would say my tip would be don't use too much water. Use a small ratio. So you can do 1 to 1 or you can do 1 to 1¼ cup. Also, I would say when it's cooking, leave it to cook. And when it's done, leave the lid on. And it'll hold all of the heat and steam in. And I would say like 10 minutes after it's done cooking, leave that lid on for a good 10 minutes, then lift it and fluff it right away. Then put the lid back on. So I think one of the things that happens is we take the lid off too soon and it evaporates, but I've noticed that it stays a lot wetter when I do that. So when I do make it on the stove top, that's my tip. But try and use it in the pressure cooker if you can. Cynthia said, Liz says, I like all grains that I've tried better in the pressure cooker. I know. The oven fan just went off, which is like so much quieter. Cynthia says, I cook it a lot, always have some in the refrigerator and add to salads. Awesome. I also use stock instead of water for salads. What a great salad too this would be. You can cut up some of the falafel and put it in your tabouli as well. We can just make a whole tabouli falafel salad. Excuse me, hello. Or you can, obviously this is a whole meal in itself. This is going to be fantastic. And the muhammara would be a great spread. Someone's just appeared in the background. Are you making a cocktail, but you're not making a cocktail for everybody? You're just making it for yourself?
That's right.
Wow, rude. Okay, so let's move on to the tabbouleh itself. And Amanda says hi. David's waving, but you're behind the camera. We can't see you. And now he's gonna come down.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so I have more than the 2 cups you would pretty much get if you're using 1 cup. So the recipe is giving you the whole, cooking through the quinoa. I'm fine with just using more. You're just gonna add more veggies, you're gonna add more herbs, you're gonna add more salt, you're gonna add more spice, whatever. So don't worry about being so precise with that. So really at this point, I'm just gonna start adding everything. I've got lots of parsley here. Let me see how much I want ratio-wise. Start mixing that up. Yeah, so if I start mixing that up, I want a little bit more parsley. This is pretty finely chopped. If y'all are putting cilantro in my tabbouleh, I don't even want to know about it. I don't want to hear about it. Green onions would be what I recommend. I didn't have any green onions, and we were up in Sonoma wine tasting yesterday, so we didn't have any time to go get green onions, but I had chives in my garden, so I'm using chives. So the idea is you just want like a nice onion flavor. So green onion's great. You can even use a red onion in this if you don't have green onions. So you just want a nice peppery onion. Mint also from my garden. So mint is pretty essential in tabbouleh. And then what else? We've got, I'm looking at my spices. We've got some cumin. Where did I put my cumin? I don't think I measured it out. I think I just left it in there. It's fine. And of course, garlic, minced up. You can do it by hand, which I did. It's going to be a little more coarse, or you can throw it in the food processor. Some cumin, as you can see, measure very carefully. And I'm going to throw in the rest of our salad ingredients. I think the recipe says you can make the dressing separate. You can certainly do that. I'm fine just throwing it all together. And I'll add the vegetables last because I want to taste the grain with the dressing ingredients first. There wasn't that much juice left. I'm going to do a little bit more. What are you making over there? Are you making a Bloody Mary? David's not going to be making a cocktail today because he just didn't have the time and to look for a Middle Eastern cocktail. But if you have any suggestions, he could probably give you share some thoughts and tips for you. And I'm going to add a little bit of oil. You can skip it, but I do think it adds a really nice flavor. And I'm missing something. Is that everything? Is that everything? I'm going to add some salt. And I'm not adding any spiciness to this one. Quinoa holds salt. Like you do not need a lot of salt when you're using quinoa or any small grain. So be very careful and err on the side of caution. Did I skip something? There's no cumin in the recipe? Oh, yeah, that's right, there is none. That's why I was looking and I was like, is there cumin in every recipe today? And I was like, no, there's no cumin in the tabbouleh. It's gonna be great in the tabbouleh. Yeah, it's fine. You can leave it out. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I think. I like cumin, but I'm particular about my cumin use. It's nice. It adds a little earthiness to it, adds a little foundation. I like it. Obviously, it goes beautifully with these flavors. I think the lemon's actually quite perfect. And I've got some cucumber already chopped up from our farmer's market. I kind of half peeled it. So I like having like a little stripe of the peel, but you can leave the peel on completely or you can take, it's whatever. And then whatever tomatoes you have. I had these beautiful little cherry tomatoes, little sun golds, which are so hard to not eat, and just be gentle with those or with any tomato. And you can leave them whole if you like. I like cutting them in half because they're gonna add some moisture obviously to it as well. And yeah, that's it, right? I mean, I feel like that's everything. But what's nice about this, I have those chickpeas that I have in the refrigerator, so I can throw some chickpeas in. I can throw some falafel in, so that's gonna be a fantastic, so this whole thing is gonna be a whole meal. It's gonna be a whole meal anyway. So at this point, I just want the right texture, and I feel like it could use a little bit more moisture. I don't want it to be too dry. It's really close. Sorry. It's really close. Because I don't want to add too much more lemon juice because it'll be overpowering. Maybe add a tiny bit more olive oil. But honestly, it's really great. And that's your tabbouleh. How pretty is that? Super, super, super pretty. Olives would be fantastic, absolutely. I mean, you can really at that point kind of go wherever you want. Look in your refrigerator, look for those kinds of more Middle Eastern flavors. Get more garlic in there. Olives would be great. Sun-dried tomatoes would be fantastic as well. It'd be a nice balance. It'll be a nice complement to the fresh tomatoes, adding sun-dried tomatoes. So I was just checking to make sure that we were recording. Thank goodness we were. Okay, so yeah, that's it, guys. I mean, that's it. So our meal today for lunch is going to be basically the muhammara. Where did I put my muhammara? I mean, this is such a perfect meal together. We've got the muhammara, we've got our tabbouleh, and we've got our gorgeous falafel. Can you do this at home? Will you send me pictures? I want to know. I'm going to try the muhammara on the falafel right now. I added a tahini sauce for you. I'm going to have a little bit. Muhammara is so good. I can't wait for you to eat this. I hope you add as much garlic as I do. Oh my God, that is so good together. And one doesn't overpower the other. It's actually really nice. There could be a chance the muhammara overpowers the falafel a bit, but the garlic is going to balance it in both. But I added the tahini sauce. It's going to be the traditional sauce you're going to add to your falafel. As I said, add it to a pita pocket, put it in lavash, make it as a salad topping or a grain salad topping or just a main dish. You know, put it in a burger bun. It's fine. But when David and I were making this, I've made it a couple times this week. I didn't have, I made the tahini sauce, but I also used an avocado. So I did it both by hand and I did it in the food processor. So little avocado, little tahini, little garlic, little lemon juice, and you've got a great drizzle because you do want something moist to go with the falafel because it's a little dry. I mean, it's meant to be, you know, your patty. So, so it's really flexible. But what do you think, guys? Are you excited? Are you excited? Are you excited? What did Liz say? What did Liz say? What did Liz say? The last red pepper. Oh, chop up the last red pepper. That's a great idea. Absolutely. It's brilliant. Yeah, for sure. I love it. So I want to hear from you. I want to see those recipes. I know some of you are going over to Facebook. If you want to use that that Facebook group that we created, it's a great way for you to connect with each other and share photos. Tina was supposed to be here, but she's actually on a plane right now because she's always adding the most gorgeous photos of the dishes that she makes, which is just so impressive. But add your photos, add your questions. I'm always checking it. I'm going to follow up with you. I will make sure that I add the breadcrumb recipe. It's very easy to do. I want to hear about how you're doing. I want to hear about what classes you want. Let me know. Like I said, you can let me know right here. Danielle always sends me just the follow-up at the end of the class. What are you looking for? We've got the bread and bagels class coming up. So it's called Bagels, Bread, and Biscuits. So we're doing the drop biscuits and the soda bread and the bagels. We've got the tofu class coming up. So the tofu class really is just the tofu. It's going to take the entire hour to really focus on the tofu. But in the middle of making the tofu, we are making soy milk. So you're getting both the soy milk recipe and the tofu because you don't have to go on and make tofu after you've made the soy milk. You could just drink the soy milk. We've got the summertime fruits. Go take a look at the menu. I'm super excited about that class because granita is one of the most fantastic things you can make in the summer. It's watermelon granita, and you can make granita with any kind of fruit. You can do it with just chocolate. It's just a wonderful Italian dessert that's really based on fresh fruit. So just go take a look at that menu. And then, of course, we've got our second pizza class. And I might start just throwing out some of the other classes we've done. The air fryer class was really popular if you want to see that because you missed it. Whatever else you want, I am at your mercy. I am at your disposal. So whatever you are interested in. And like I said, I think I'll do it. We'll see what we can do about doing an outdoor grilling class. I am very excited about the tofu class as well. I cannot wait to share it with you. Maxine said her tabbouleh is fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, it's really all about the fresh ingredients, right? That's what it's about. So use those fresh ingredients. I'm very mindful when I'm coming up with the classes about when I'm hosting them. Obviously, these are things you can make any time of year and what have you, but really I'm mindful about this is the time of year to make these kinds of salads because the tomatoes and the cucumbers are in season. Same with the peppers, to be honest. You can roast them yourself if you don't get the jarred. Last week I did the Tuscan class because I was really excited to use the ingredients that are in season. So I'm always mindful of that. But we've got many options. We can do whatever we want. So I look forward to staying in touch with you guys. Have any questions, let me know. Have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed the class. Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Janice, for joining us for the first time. Welcome. I hope to see you again. Thanks, Carol. Great to see you guys. Julie, thanks for staying up. Julie's in the UK. She sticks around, which, I'm mindful of my UK viewers because I changed it to 11 o'clock, which I think is better for everybody here, wherever you live, but I was mindful of my UK viewers as well. So thanks for joining. Good to see you. Bye. Thanks, Dora. Good to see you. Thanks again, Maxine and Liz. So good to see you joining us, and Carol and Cynthia. And Amanda, you as well, my friend. And Danielle, thank you for your help. As always, really appreciate it. All right, have a wonderful day, everybody. And we'll get David back here doing some cocktails because he's slacking off. What's up with that? All right, signing off. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.